probably the only film I've made I don't want to really to comment upon. Most of the films I know and I saw, and also the films I've made, are made under mask, as I say. There's a kind of mask always which you have to put on you, or on the film, or on the project, on the script, on the shooting, on whatever. You seldom make films straightforwardly. For instance, The Devil, a film I've made in Poland in the 70s. I was strongly attacked by what happened with the Polish youth in 1968, and how this idealistic Polish youth was maneuvered into an explosion. I wanted to make something about it. I couldn't, obviously. It would be anti-regime, and the regime was funding cinema and giving the money, so it was contradictory. So I've made a film which tries to tell this story under the mask of the 18th century costume, when Poland was losing its independence for almost 200 years. Well, it's a mask, okay? Possession, in order to say something which is important morally and politically to me, went under the mask of a almost horror film. And for some not very bright viewers, it stays a horror film. They never got under the mask. They stayed on this superficial level, which is a pity. So when I started to think of making Szamanka, I wanted a film which shows the state of things, the country, without commentary, exactly, and without mask. So the way it is, for me. A story which would speak by itself, not to go with a little camera in some obscure parts of Polish life in 1995, because others were doing it, and to no avail. Nothing of any kind of analysis or conclusion came out of it. For this, I asked a young Polish writer, Manuela Gretkowska, to do the script, because I also wanted to detach myself even more, adopting the point of view of a woman writer, not a man writer. So in fact, she did the script, I only directed. No masks. Gretkowska was, as I said, a young writer living in Paris, because she belonged to this fourth, fifth, sixth or seventh wave of emigration from communist Poland. These young people, 20-some, came before '89, which is before independence, because they did something in the underground publishing, and they wrote for forbidden journals, newspapers, and magazines, literary. And when I met her because she sent me a book which she wrote. And in this book there were like 5 or 6 pages on me. So I answered by letter, and we've met in Paris, and she's an extremely brilliant, bright and talented girl, and she was just losing her time, losing her best years, being nobody in Paris, and sending some correspondence to some horrible press in Poland, which it was the moment it started to be independent. So the first independent newspapers were the equivalent of the Sun in Britain, what that would be in America, I don't know, which is the kolorowe gazety, as we call it here, which is the colored newspapers, you know, scandals, stupidities, etc. And so we became friends, and I sent her to Poland. I said, now you can go, believe me, and you're so talented that in a couple of years you'll be very well known if you continue to write, because you're brilliant. And she did it. So when I went to Poland, my turn, in 94, I came back definitely in a way. We met, and she was full of stories and of ideas. She's extremely energetic. And I asked her, well, why don't you write me a film? Please do. It's interesting what's going around. Please do. And she came to me same day. She called me, said, I have an idea. This is, I have a friend and she's madly in love with the young guy, but they are so different, and university. And the guy left her, and she said to me, to Gretkowska, the only thing I want to do is to eat his brains with a little spoon, like you eat dessert, okay? I said, oh, this is good, but she has to do it, to eat the brain. So it started with the brain, which is the last scene in Szamanka, and she wrote the script. Poland, 95 was a capitalistic country, so we had producers which were eager not to lose money. So I had to take the Boguslaw Linda, the hero of the film, who was the biggest star in Poland of his generation. And he attracted crowds at that time. He still does, but maybe less, he's a bit older now. That was, I had no escape. And then also I had no other candidate. Even today I wouldn't know exactly whom to cast. So he was in a way okay. Except that he went drunk so many times on the stage and not knowing his text, being the star, and I just wanted to kill him several times. He's a very good actor, by the way, when he's sober, or half sober. As for the girl, I went through I needed somebody of 20. So I went through the schools, I checked whomever is acting in Poland at that time, TV, films, theater, whatever, and looks like 20. And yeah, they were quite a lot of lovely, intelligent, delicate young ladies. Too lovely, too delicate, and too intelligent. So fragile in a way I don't like in actors. They were educated to play Ophelia in Hamlet, but not to play Szamanka. And I was in a coffee shop, and it was winter, and with the producer, and despairing. This girl, Iwona, just entered and sat. She was cold. She had a little coat and red hands and running nose, and she was Szamanka. So I just took my courage, you know. It was difficult, but I went to her and I just asked her, would you be interested in acting in a film? What are you doing? She said she's a student of first year of whatever university, which wasn't true. And yeah, why not? Okay, so the producer sent her a script, and she called me and she said, I said, do you think there's anything in the script you wouldn't like to see or to do, or which is the same, or no problems. So we started with her, and I think she's brilliant in the film, because it's so difficult to say whether she is really beautiful or really ugly. So difficult to say whether she's profound or shallow. The mystery stays to the end, and this is for me the biggest miracle in this apparition, coffee shop, winter, Warsaw, snow, you know. Suddenly she comes out of the blue. Very poor, difficult circumstances, and well, she did it. it had a good score by the end, even with these difficulties. It made a lot of money. To what degree because of the scandal, or to what degree because of the film, I will never know. Nobody will. But the official response, newspapers, critics, whoever, even establishment, oh no, this is his bad film. His only bad film. I've heard that. It hurts because I like the film a lot. This very Catholic country, this very at that time, this highly uneducated audience was much more absorbed into hating me because it's a non-Catholic film. So it can be easily mistaken for an anti-Catholic film. For instance, my brother, who lives 400 kilometers from Warsaw, told me that in the little village, the priest was stopping physically people from entering the cinema where Szamanka was shown. The distributors were so afraid of the film that they, after 2 weeks, they authorized only seances at 10 o'clock in the night, before no. So they were so busy hating this aspect and also being shocked by the so-called sexuality of the film, which they never understood, that maybe they never fucked themselves, because they would immediately see that it's just untrue on screen. That they couldn't go any farther from that, maybe. But in the other films, I don't know. For instance, in Possession, there's a lot of things I felt funny, which means maybe my sense of humor is not so contagious as it should be. I'm not Billy Wilder. When people started to express their hostility to the film, it was a general, no, they don't like, they never said they don't like Iwona Petry. They didn't like the film. She turned against the film, and she said, it stems from her, that she was mistreated. She says, yeah, when I gave them little gifts for Christmas, I gave to the director a little bear, and he tore the bear apart, and he hanged it on my door in the hotel, which is true. This is mistreatment, all right, this is really cruel, but why did I do it? Because the same day she announced to the production that she goes with her fiancé to India. And we had 2 scenes to shoot, important scene, after the Christmas holidays. We had a break of 10 days. She went for 10 days to India. No insurance company in the West would allow her to do that. You can get sick, you can be killed, the plane could, whatever, the film is ruined, okay? She went. And I was so taken aback, so mad at her that, yeah, I tore her little gift into pieces. And this is the only example of my moral cruelty she ever told about. But the young ladies, hating the film, being journalists, and took it as a crying example of, I was saying Roman Polanski, the name, right? I was worse than Roman Polanski. Tearing the bear apart is, okay. So yeah, that made a kind of confusion on the ladies' side of the audience, because they understood that this girl was coerced, was pushed into doing this sexual things, scenes, etc., against her will. Untrue, no sexual scenes. In fact, there is one kiss in the whole film, and it's about a piece of chocolate. Yeah, I was working with Andrzej Zulawski, with whom I've made so many films, and with Na Srebrnym Globie we started a collaboration which consists in him writing freely music, not from here to there and 15 seconds, etc., and giving me a lot of a flow of music, and I was the one who cuts, who puts, who make it fit in my mind. But But the basic ideas of the music, the basic themes, the moods, even the instrumentation, the genre of music, we discussed, of course, before, and to great lengths, I must say, with the piano, etc. And he gave me, I asked him for, like very often I do, two musics. One which would be the music of the erotic encounter and encounters, and the other which would fit the shaman theme. And he gave it to me, and the shaman theme was drums. And the sexual, let's say, erotic encounters, the sensual thing was strings. And it seemed to me, but without analyzing, so deeply wrong, so basic and basically wrong that I put it in reverse. So I've put the drums on the love scenes and the romantic music on the shaman. And suddenly the film came to life, I think, with that maneuver. And he said, "Oh yeah, you're right." So it's okay, nobody's angry. At that time, I was mature enough, I hope, to try to hide the techniques more than I did before. Sort of natural energy, and even against what I would consider the platitudes of scripts sometimes. For instance, pushed me to overdo the camera work. For instance, this frantically circling camera in L'Important c'est d'aimer was when the dialogue, which was so French and so not mine and so bourgeois in a way, was boring me. In the case of Szamanka, it's a little story. It's a chamber music. It's confined. It's the first time in my life I used the Steadicam. Before of '95, the Steadicam was not much in use, and when it was highly expensive. The guys who were trained to do it were highly expensive, and the stuff, the material, technically it was, so we couldn't really afford it up to the moment when Andrzej Zulawski made a photo found in Israel. A young guy educated in Łódź, and this guy was his student in Łódź. And he called him in Israel. And this young man came from Israel with his Steadicam, his thing, just so happy to be back in Poland and to make a film. Maybe, I don't want to push it too far. It was one of the first films made in Poland with a Steadicam. But again, the Steadicam work I saw on screen, even in quite important Western production, was like a mad vessel floating, couldn't start. It was always jerky, not jerky, but this horrible movement which makes you want to puke. So we trained in order to have an invisible Steadicam, which is by definition what Steadicam should be. Goes everywhere, it does whatever you want. And it was a big relief to do that. It was also a quickening of the tempo of the shooting, very much so. But also we used, in this case I used other means. This to render this world which slowly closes on the couple, on their story, their drama, which the sexual comprehension and the intellectual uncomprehension, in order not to talk about it, but to show it, we've built a set in which in each scene the walls are closer. So we start with quite a big apartment, and we finish with something which has like 3 meters on 2 meters, okay, surface. But you can't see it if you don't pay attention. And why the hell would you pay attention to the walls? There's something happening. And that was very effective, really. Look, for once, I did something I never do when we have to talk about these films of mine. I saw it again. And I was quite amazed, stricken even by the, how to say it, the purity of it. It's a Puritan film, in a way. It's simply clean, like eyes wide open, not widely shot or whatever that was. So this is a thing I would love to do again sometimes if I'm permitted to make another film. To be in a place, in a circumstance, and with people which allow this exercise of open-eyedness, not blinking. That was a very rewarding experience.